Well, hey there, guys. Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to the channel on this fine afternoon. This is Open Mic. Open Mic is exactly what it sounds like. The entire channel of our discourse goes strictly to what it is you guys want to talk about. And you guys let us know what you want to talk about by firing in questions to our tip link anytime 24/7 at streamelements.com/John Campea/tip. And then here on Open Mic, once we get through all the remaining questions we have that have been submitted via the tip link, we go ahead and take your super chats. If you guys are watching live, we'll take some questions from you guys watching live as well. And it's great to have you guys here. The vacation is over. I officially ended my vacation on Saturday. So technically speaking, my vacation ended Friday night. So I came and did an open mic on Saturday. A lot of celebrating Anne's birthday this weekend, of course, culminating in us going to see WrestleMania last night. Very disappointing ending to WrestleMania. But overall, the evening was fun. It was really, really good. Good to have all you guys here. And yeah, that is what we're going to do. So let's start things off here. Before we get to, the questions you guys sent in, let's start things off here. I want to follow up on something that we talked about on the John Campea Show a little bit earlier today. We talked about the fact that the new Blue Beetle trailer dropped. And I have not really known what to expect out of the Blue Beetle trailer. Quite frankly, of all the comic books that I've read, I never read a lot of Blue Beetle. Actually, I don't think I ever picked up a Blue Beetle comic. Like anything that I read of Blue Beetle's when he was appearing in something else, right? So I didn't know a lot, and I didn't really, I understand the basic mythology of Blue Beetle. I understand the story of the Blue Beetle, but I didn't really know what to expect as far as tone. What's it going to feel like? Is it going to feel like a cheap CW show? Is it going to feel like a good motion picture or something like that? And so the trailer came out, and I thought the trailer was great. I really did. Now, that doesn't mean I think the movie's going to be great, right? We've seen many great trailers to bad movies, great trailers to bad TV shows. So I have no idea if the movie's going to be any good or not. But I do know that Warner Brothers originally planned for Blue Beetle to go straight to HBO Max, and they thought it was too good to go straight to HBO Max, so they're putting it in theaters. That's good. And I thought the trailer was really good. I thought the trailer was really solid. I had a lot of fun with it. I really did. So the question, though, is when you look at Black Adam, which underperformed, I think that's a kind way of saying it. It underperformed, but I still thought Black Adam was pretty good. It had flaws, things about it I didn't like. We've talked a lot about them, but overall, I still had a good time watching Black Adam. Shazam 2 is a total unmitigated disaster financially, but I really like that movie. Like, I think that movie is really, really quite good. And yet, with all the obstacles, packed up against it, it turned out to be an unmitigated, complete and utter, no way to spin it financial disaster. I don't even know that movie is going to end up making $150 million worldwide. Wrap your head around that. Shazam was never a big blockbuster franchise anyway, but the last one made $360-something million. I expected at least that. Hopefully a little bit more, because I think the movies are good, but I don't even know it's going to make $150 million. So that brings me then to Blue Beetle. I think Blue Beetle looks really fun. I think the trailer looks delightful. But the question is this: is Blue Beetle destined to flop regardless of how good it is? Because again, I didn't think Black Adam was bad. I thought Shazam 2 was really quite good. And look at the struggles those films had. Again, I think that's, is a big, it's symptomatic, if you will, of the fact that the DCU has not been stewarded right. Going all the way back to the beginning. Like, even with the greatness that was Man of Steel, it wasn't shepherded properly. And the audiences never really caught on. Whether you're talking about during the Snyder era or after the Snyder era, it never really caught on. There are just a few examples of the DC movies that were wins with the critics, the box office, and the audience. Aquaman was one of them. Wonder Woman was one of them. But that's really it. None of the rest of them were, even my beloved Man of Steel. And then you get things like the Suicide Squad, which I had a lot of fun with the first Suicide Squad movie, even though it was a hot mess. It was editing-wise, it was a hot mess of a movie, but I had a lot of fun with it. Sue me, I don't care. James Gunn's Suicide Squad was even better. But I mean, the struggles that the DC movies are having now have a lot to do with the built-up problems that they've had for a long, long time. And so that is what Blue Beetle is inheriting. Blue Beetle is inheriting that. And if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Black Adam couldn't succeed, and if Shazam 2, a solid little movie that is a sequel to a really good first movie, what chance does Blue Beetle have, even if it ends up being as good as I think the trailer looks? Because I think it's going to struggle. Let's assume, first of all, we have no idea if Blue Beetle's going to be a good movie or a bad movie. Okay, we're all just speculating here at this point. I think the trailer looks great. I am encouraged that Warner Brothers decided it was too good to just dump on streaming and they were going to put it in theaters. So I have some confidence. All right, maybe my confidence is misplaced. Fair enough, but I have some confidence in this Blue Beetle movie. We'll find out if it's any good. But the thing is, even if it's great, I think it's going to face a lot of challenges and struggles. Because you don't have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's not a sequel to a really good movie that most people really enjoyed. It's a brand new franchise within the franchise of a character that most average film fans have never heard of. Then again, so was frickin' Guardians of the Galaxy, and that worked out okay. But still, it's a hurdle. It's an obstacle, if you will, that needs to be overcome. So yeah, guys, I'll be straight up with you. I just don't see any way. Now, look, right now, I just want Warner Brothers to put out good movies. And listen, Warner Brothers, this is going to sound really weird, but hear me out. Warner Brothers can still take away a win with Blue Beetle, even if it flops. Because one of the main things I think Warner Brothers needs to start doing, and it's going to be hard for them to really do it until the first James Gunn, Peter Safran era movie comes out, which is going to be Superman Legacy in 2025. But one of the things that Warner Brothers needs to be able to accomplish is rehabilitating the image of failure that the DCU has had. Now, whether you love a lot of DC movies like me or have hated all of them, I think we can all agree there is an image problem with the DC Universe films, right? And that's an image of failure. And so let's say Blue Beetle comes out and it chokes badly financially. Like nobody goes to see it. It makes the same amount of money as, say, Shazam does. Okay? Warner Brothers can still take away a win from that if the movie's really good. Because even if not a ton of people see it, but the movie's really good, it'll at least do a little bit of work in rehabilitating the perception and image of a DC movie. Maybe, I hope. Now, again, there are some people who will say, well, no, John, the only reason that Shazam flopped is because people know they're rebooting the DCEU and therefore they're not quite sure why to go see it. That's nonsense. All right, let me go on record, my brethren, my friends, even those of you who have that opinion, we're still brethren and friends. I think that's absolute nonsense, right? Because it ignores a couple of really, really big things. Number one, it ignores all the other systemic problems that have been there with all of them. And number two, it ignores the fact that when Black Adam was coming out, everybody thought there wasn't a reboot coming. They had just announced that Henry Cavill was coming back, all that kind of stuff, right? So if you're going to say the reason these movies have underperformed is because, well, people know they're rebooting. They didn't know that when Black Adam was coming out. A movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, a superhero movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, that movie couldn't even make $400 million. And saying you can't apply because people knew they were rebooting to, no, that's not what people thought when that movie was coming out. And again, it also takes away from the best film of the year this year, Everything Everywhere All at Once. People didn't go, well, I just didn't see any point in seeing it if they're not going to do a sequel. Often I bring up Goodfellas. Nobody will say, well, don't bother watching Goodfellas. They never did a sequel. So it doesn't actually go anywhere after the end of the movie. So there's no point in watching the Goodfellas. We go to see movies to see great movies. If they're a part of a shared cinematic universe and can connect into something else afterwards, great. That's bonus. It's bonus. but we go to movies to see a good movie. And that's true whether it's a one-shot movie, part of a series, anyway, that's all that kind of stuff. So Blue Beetle, man, this I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to put up a number for you guys watching right now, okay? I'm going to put up a number. I'm going to ask a poll. Does Blue Beetle, BB, make over or under, I'm going to say 250 million in total. And that means worldwide. Worldwide. So I'm going to say over and I'm going to say under. Now, that's a hugely small amount of money. But remember, Shazam 2, I don't believe is going to crack 150 million. So the question I have for you guys in the poll right now is, do you think that Blue Beetle will make over or under $250 million in total? In total. Right, we got 112 votes already. And 55% of you are saying under. 56% of you are saying under. 44% of you, 45, 46, 47% of you are more optimistic. You look on the bright side of life. The glass is half full. You believe it can be over. Which is awesome. I don't know. I think it's going to struggle to make 250 million. I really do. I think it's going to struggle to get there. I mean, I hope it does, because I hope it's good. And I hope it's great. I think the trailer looks fantastic. So I hope it's really good. And if it's good, I hope it makes money. But looking at the pattern going on with DC films and the fact that the audiences have seemed to given up on DC films, I don't know. Okay, so now we're over 150 votes, and it's 54% of you are saying over. 54% of you are now glass half full types of people, whereas 45% of you, 46% of you are saying under. I unfortunately and sadly kind of fall on the under. I think it's going to make under $250. But again, I hope it's awesome. I hope it does really well. I think movies that turn out to be good deserve to be rewarded. So we'll have to see. I just think it's going to struggle. I think it's going to struggle. And we are going to end the poll right now with the final number being 51%. No, now it's 50-50. Now it's 51. We're going to call it a split. We're going to call it 51, 52, 50, 49, whatever. It's pretty much divided right down the line as to whether you guys think it's going to be over or under. So we're going to find out. We'll find out when this thing comes out. I hope it does well, because I'll tell you what, if Blue Beetle, we got The Flash coming. I don't know how The Flash is going to do, given everything, despite how good I hear it is. Then we got to wonder how Aquaman is going to do. Blue Beetle. I mean, yeah, a lot of questions, man. A lot of questions still need to be answered. All right. Well, guys, with that kind of down, thanks for letting me talk about that for a bit. Let's get over to your tip questions that you guys have been firing in. So let's jump over there right now. Let's see. We are going to start off here with Dre B, who writes, Matt Davis is literally the doppelganger of Harrison Ford. I cannot remember off the top of my head who Matt Davis is. Anybody in the live chat? I know there's like a 10-second delay, but if any of you guys in the live chat know off the top of your head who Matt Davis is, let me know. Because maybe I do know and I'm just freezing on it, but let me see. Anyone? Bueller, Bungo Bilbo saying nope. Nobody seems to know who that is either. All right, so we'll just move on. Next up, we got TJ Perry, who writes, oh, somebody's saying he's in Vampire Diaries? Oh, really? Okay, I don't know who that is. All right, TJ Perry writes, any great sci-fi movies you guys have recently rediscovered? I watched Repo Man. Oh, wow, that's a blast from the past. With Jude Law and Forrest Whitaker, and damn, I forgot how great it is. Fantastic social commentary on the for-profit nature of healthcare. Listen, great sci-fi will often address modern, if you really look back at the best and classic sci-fi, it is often an observation through fantastical lenses of modern day issues that we face, right? That's really what, most of the time, great sci-fi is allegorical of great or of important issues that we currently face, right? The original Star Trek series did that. You know, Stanley Kubrick's stuff did that. A lot of the great movies do stuff like that, the great sci-fi ones. So what's a great one that I've rediscovered recently. You know what? This is a little bit to an aside because it doesn't really apply to your question. But you guys know my all-time favorite show is Battlestar Galactica, like the Ronald D. Moore, the 2000s one. I've been going down YouTube rabbit holes of watching clips of Battlestar Galactica again on YouTube, and I'm like, I know it's my favorite show of all time. I think it is the greatest television show ever made. I've got to go back and watch it again. It's been a number of years since I watched it all the way through, but yeah, I got to rediscover that again. All right. Thanks for the question, man. Next up, we've got Guzman, who writes, I love Moana so freaking much, even more than Encanto and Coco, which is sacrilegious. I'm Colombian. So I'm hyped for a live action Moana, but only if is original cast. So for those of you guys who weren't around on the John Campea Show this morning, it kind of broke just before we started the show that Disney and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson announced that they are going to do a live action Moana. And maybe more importantly, Dwayne Johnson is going to renew his, what's the word I'm looking for when they revisit their role? They're going to reprise. That's it. He's going to reprise his role as Maui. Now, whether they're able to get the original girl, who Aleu or something. Anyway, she was I had her in studio. I love her. She's fantastic. I forget her name, but she's now 23 years old. So I don't know if she might be a little too old to play the role again. So I don't know. Fanjecture is saying she's listed as an executive producer. Well, that's great. I mean, if you guys watch my editorial video, my explainer video on what does a producer do, you can find it on the channel right now. You know that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but still, I think listen, I'm intrigued. Let's at least just say that I'm intrigued by a live action idea of it. I mean, it could go south really quickly though, Guzman. All right. Next up, Mega Man writes, hello, John and crew. Do you think a way to go with Star Wars is doing a remake of the original trilogy? No. I know everything is remake and nothing new, but I would like to see the original Star Wars been made, maybe also with the prequels in mind. Yeah, listen, so it always comes up whenever remakes or reboots come up, right? You guys know my opinion about remakes and reboots. Remake and reboot everything. I don't care. There's literally nothing wrong with remakes and reboots in principle. Because if you make a remake or reboot and it's bad, oh well, just ignore it and you still have the original. If you do a remake or reboot and it's great, like we've seen some of those, then great, we have a new movie to love as well. And worst case scenario, studies have proved that when a remake to an original movie comes out, interest in that original movie skyrockets. Like, do you know how many people saw Infernal Affairs before, Martin Scorsese came out to do The Departed? Not a ton. A lot more went to go see it and knew about it, became aware of it, and sought it out after The Departed came out. I mean, it's just facts. That's the way it is. So, but whenever I bring that up, the one thing people will often throw at me, well, you wouldn't like it if they said they were going to remake Star Wars. I go, yeah, sure. I wouldn't have a problem with it. Why would I? If they try to remake Star Wars and it turns out to be crappy, oh, well, I still got the original Star Wars. What went wrong? What's bad? How has my life become any worse because they made a remake of something? It doesn't. And hey, if the remakes turn out great, well, wonderful. Now we got new movies that we can love too, along with the old ones. But I don't think that's the answer right now for Star Wars. Star Wars is still an ongoing storyline. Whether it's in the movies or on television, it's an ongoing storyline. You just can't go back and reboot it unless you're ready to just end the entire thing and say, we're going to start all over again. But even then, I don't know, like reboots to me, or remakes, I should say, to me, only really make a lot of sense if today's movie-going audience hasn't really seen the original. You know what I mean? You can't say that about I mean, not everybody has seen Star Wars, but I venture to say a significant majority of the average movie-going audience today has seen Star Wars. So because of that, and because of the fact that it's still an ongoing thing, I don't think the Star Wars original trilogy is ripe for remake. But hey, I wouldn't argue with them. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't raise a fuss if they decided to do it. I'd just be interested to see how it would work out. All right. Good question, man. Thanks a lot for that. Let's see. Next up. Lassie E.G. Hansen writes, hey, Ray and crew. Ray and the crew is the truth. Obviously, Ray's not here right now. The Rise of Skywalker is soon to be the Star Wars movies in the latest trilogy I have watched the most. So my question is, have you ever watched a movie multiple times hoping that it would get better? Yes. And they are also Star Wars movies. Like I remember back when I was still at Collider, we decided to do some movie commentaries. And a part of them we decided was to do the Star Wars prequels. Because I'm like, hey, I think the Star Wars prequels are garbage. But it's been a beat since I watched them. Let's go back and watch them again. Even though I saw like the Phantom Menace like 20 times. Yeah, let's go back and watch them again. So sure enough, Phantom Menace, still garbage. Attack of the Clones, really, really shitty garbage. And then you got Revenge of the Sith. And I will say this. I found Revenge of the Sith, upon my latest viewing of it, the least offensively bad than I've ever found it before. That's the best I can say about it. It wasn't quite as bad as I remember. Still pretty awful. Sand, you know. Still pretty awful, but my least. So I've definitely done that. I especially did that with. I remember who directed that one. It wasn't Ron Howard, but it was Ryan Gosling, Sean Penn, Emma Stone. I believe it was The Gangster Squad. I thought that movie looked fantastic, and I went to go see it, and it was total garbage. I'm like, it couldn't have been that bad. I must watch it again. And so I went back and watched it again, and no, it was still just as bad. But yes, I think I'm like everybody else. Every once in a while, we'll come across movies like, I think I need to give that one another chance. And then we go back hoping maybe to find something a little bit better in it. But whatever, that's just me. Great question, Lassie. All right. Next up, we've got Merrick, who writes, I was thinking that since on phase 4, Kevin Feige was stretched too thin, do you think if he leaves, will Marvel suffer? Oh, absolutely. It seems that he is the reason why Marvel has succeeded all this time. Maybe I am wrong. No, listen, there are two truths here that people think there are two truths that people seem to think are mutually exclusive, but they're not. The one train of thought is, Kevin Feige has nothing to do with the success of Marvel. The other train of thought is Kevin Feige is the sole reason there is success at Marvel, and Marvel cannot possibly survive without him. I would suggest that Kevin Feige is foundationally responsible for the quality and success of Marvel, and that they will suffer if and when he decides to leave. But that is not to say that Marvel can't continue to succeed if they get the right people in place after Kevin Feige goes. This whole notion people have of only this person can fill that role, only this actor can play that role, only this director can direct this movie, is totally false. It's totally not true. Like, I remember after... when going back, this is going back a ways, very, very Canadian of me, but I remember when Wayne Gretzky left the Edmonton Oilers. Wayne Gretzky, the greatest professional athlete in history. Statistically, he is. Like, go watch the ESPN report. Statistically speaking, Wayne Gretzky eclipses Michael Jordan, eclipses Tom Brady. Anyway, if you even go over to Wayne Gretzky, back in the day, greatest professional athlete of all time. When he left the Edmonton Oilers, greatest player of all time, holds every record there is. Most goals, most assists, most points, most power play, most everything. Most everything. Imagine an NBA player who is the all-time leader in points and the all-time leader in assists and the all-time leader in rebounds. That's never going to happen, but that's what Wayne Gretzky did in hockey. Anyway, when he left the Edmonton Oilers, every hockey pundit said, that's it. The Edmonton Oilers can never win another Stanley Cup. I mean, they lost the greatest player of all time. They lost the greatest athlete in the world, and he's gone now. That's it. They'll never win another championship. Guess what happened? 2 years later, they won the Stanley Cup again. And it's not that Wayne Gretzky wasn't the greatest athlete of all time. And it wasn't that Wayne Gretzky didn't help propel the Edmonton Oilers to win all those Stanley Cups. Of course he did. But when he left, they were able to rebuild and put in new pieces, keep some vets, and they were able to go on and win the Stanley Cup just 2 years later. So, yeah, listen, if I'm going to go see the Edmonton Oilers play tomorrow night, by the way. I'm going to go see, Connor McDavid play against the LA Kings. And then I got given some Kings tickets tomorrow night. So we're going to go see the Oilers play. So yeah, if Kevin Feige were to leave, that would hurt. Just like when Wayne Gretzky left, it hurt the Edmonton Oilers. But guess what? That doesn't mean they can't get in other great people who can't pick up the pieces and pick up the load and carry on where Kevin Feige left off and still have tremendous success. They absolutely could. Again, look, another sports analogy. Look at Michael Jordan. The first time he retired, the first year he retired, guess what? Everybody said, well, that's it. The Bulls are done. But guess what? They came within one game of going to the NBA Finals without Michael Jordan the next year. They had a great playoff run the very next year. If you rebuild right and you put in the pieces, and that can happen to Marvel. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. It ain't going to be easy, but it can be done. Because if Gretzky can leave the Oilers and they can still win Stanley Cups, Marvel can lose Kevin Feige, which you don't want to do. You don't want to lose Kevin Feige, but you could lose him and still have hope that you could still have great success. Both are true. At least that's the way I see it. Anyway, great question, Merrick. Okay, next up. Brandon writes, hey, John. Something I think a bunch of people have forgotten is that Star Wars Celebration is this weekend. We've forgotten because we don't care. This is this weekend. Any final predictions about movie and or Disney Plus show announcements? Listen, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I couldn't give a rat's ass about Disney events. I really couldn't give a rat's ass. I will never attend another Disney event. Ever. They're such bullshit. And what's my prediction for Star Wars Celebration? They're going to announce a bunch of things that never come to pass and never happen, or they're not going to announce anything. It's just going to be a lot of talking about things everybody already knows, because that's all Disney seems to do anymore. So how can you tell I really don't like Disney live events? Does it show? Am I not being subtle enough? Yeah, I really don't give two squirts of urine about, I could not care less about Star Wars Celebration. Now look, that doesn't mean I'm not going to keep my ear to the ground to see if they do happen to announce something really profound and something really great. I hope they do. I'm still a big Star Wars fan. I really hope they do. But Disney puts on garbage events. They suck. They absolutely 100% suck. At putting on events, and I will never darken the door of another Disney event. They can go fuck themselves. But I still love Star Wars, and I hope something great comes out. I really do, and I will definitely pay attention. But yeah, everybody's forgotten about it because nobody cares, because they've dropped the ball so badly on how they do their live stuff. The last Star Wars Celebration was a big dud. D23 was a big dud. I just don't care about it anymore. But that doesn't mean they couldn't drop some gold. Bomb after bomb. I mean, it doesn't mean they can't drop some gold. And I will definitely, as a Star Wars fan, be keeping my ear to the ground to see if anything significant comes out. And if it does, then I'll probably just assume that it won't actually happen, but maybe it will. So we'll see. We'll see, Brandon. All right, next up. Murray Reich writes, while I'm very excited to see Secret Invasion, I keep wondering how many world threats there are going on in the MCU world that I should care about. First, we had Celestials, which nobody in the world is freaking out over. Then we had Multiverse and now Skrulls. Murray, listen, being a victim of success. Being a victim of success. Because one of the problems you're going to have with the shared cinematic universe on any level, and this is going to be true of Star Wars, it's going to be true of Harry Potter, it's going to be true of Marvel, it's going to be true of DC, is that if you keep going on long enough, how is anything important anymore? And I'm not talking about you either die the hero or live long enough to become the villain. I'm not talking about that. I mean, like I often talk about how the MCU and all movie franchises need to learn to shift gears. Not every time that we walk into the world of the MCU should the world's at stake, the world's at stake, the universe is at stake, the planet's at stake, the world's going to blow up, the universe is going to blow up. Every single freaking time. Why would we even care anymore? Even Miss Marvel, which is a show I absolutely loved. I absolutely loved Miss Marvel. But even in Miss Marvel, they couldn't resist the urge to throw in that one thing about, oh, they're actually coming to write over our entire existence with their world's existence. Like even in Miss Marvel, they couldn't resist the urge to make everything about saving the world again. Got to save the world. Got to save the world. Like earlier in the days of the MCU, they knew to shift gears once in a while, right? Like, yeah, got to save the world. Got to unveil this secret. Got to save the world. Guy's fighting for his family. Like they would change up gears. And it just kind of gets to the point that, I mean, at least WandaVision was a little bit of a gear change, right? Like that was more of an isolated, the world isn't necessarily at stake with WandaVision. That was really good. But even Shang-Chi, which I loved Shang-Chi. But hey, if the monster got out, it was going to end the world. Like everything's about ending the world. So at what point, Murray, you're raising a great question. At what point do we just stop caring? Like literally, we have an MCU where a giant being was emerging from the core of the planet and came through the surface of the Indian Ocean and froze there. And then another celestial god appeared in the skies pronouncing, "I will return for judgment." And nobody even talks about it because in the MCU, you know what we call that? In the MCU, we call that Thursday. It's just Thursday, right? And they got to figure out a way to continue to change the gears. Get back to more street level stuff like what Daredevil was on Netflix, like what Punisher was on Netflix. Get back to the idea of, hey, yeah, have your world-saving adventures, but also make sure you have things where the scope and scale is a bit smaller, but make them feel really important anyway. Like we watched John Wick. John Wick isn't trying to save the world. John Wick is just trying to save his own inner peace. And yet, they made that in the John Wick movies feel profound and wide in scope and all that kind of stuff. He was simply fighting for his own inner peace. He wasn't fighting to save the world. The world wasn't going to blow up unless he took out the Frenchman. No, it was about a man trying to find his inner peace after going through tremendous pain and suffering and loss. The MCU needs to learn how to tell stories like that again, to change it up. Because you're right, Murray, at some point it's just this, let me guess, whatever it is that this Dr. Demento Fitz has a device that's going to destroy the world unless you stop, right? It's the same every single time. They got to get back to changing gears. So I hope they find a way to do that. But it's difficult. I make it sound like it's easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's hard. And the longer you have success, the longer you continue to, be able to have victory after victory, it gets harder and harder and harder and harder to do. And Marvel's had a lot of success. I don't know if you've paid attention, but they've had a lot of success. That means it's becoming incredibly hard for them to do that. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Murray. Excellent observation, man. All right. Next up, Anonymous writes, love today's show. Thank you so much, Anonymous. I have a question about something that I'm a little bit confused about. I think it's great that you're sponsoring the ROBSERVATIONS show now, but how can you afford to sponsor him if you don't have the money to keep him on? All love, just curious how that works. All right. Thanks a lot for asking that. It is crazy to me because this really is a very simple concept, but there has been a lot of misunderstanding about it. I've been getting some messages from people quite like that one. Let me explain it one more time, and then I'm probably never going to address this again. So the basics of it is this. So you guys know, Rob is now doing something I 100% encourage him to do, which is to really pursue developing ROBSERVATIONS. As somebody who left a full-time 6-figure paying job so I can go off on my own and build my own channel. There's nothing more rewarding, and I'm super thrilled and supportive of Rob doing that. So let me see if I can explain this one more time. So the first thing you have to understand is Rob has always been part-time with me. Always. For 5 years, Rob has been part-time with me because the only thing he's done is worked for me for about 2 hours a day doing the John Campea Show. And every once in a while, he would do like a companion video or an open spoiler discussion. And I would pay him extra to do those one-shot things as well. But for 5 years, he worked part-time for me until last year. Now, last year, we decided, I was doing some expansion, and we decided we were going to try doing some things which would have Rob working more full-time with me. And so we kind of moved him to a structure that was not literally full-time, but it was structurally full-time, right? So Rob was working with me full-time. And so I paid him like a full-time salaried person in many ways. The problem was, after a year, we realized that all these other things we were going to do, all these afternoon shows and all these other things we had plans for, that no fault of Rob's, no fault of mine, just some things were never a good idea to begin with. Some things fell apart for different reasons. Some things we thought were good ideas and we tried them for a while and they just didn't work. And we ended up in a situation where, the afternoon shows we were doing were not profitable. It was actually costing me more money to make the afternoon shows than it was than the money that they made. So I was actually losing money doing afternoon shows. So it just got to the point where we realized I don't have anything more for Rob to do. And so I would need Rob to go back to being part-time, which is going back to doing the John Campea Show, right? And maybe a few other things here and there. Because, the afternoon shows were just losing money. So not that the channel as a whole is losing money, but our afternoon shows were losing money. And here's the thing, and I don't know why this is difficult for some people to understand. I will not pay somebody full-time money who is working 2 hours a day, especially when I have other people on staff who work 7, 8, 9 hours a day and make the same amount of money. Like Ray. Ray, whereas a lot of people roll out of bed at 7 a.m., Ray is already working at 7 a.m. every day. Ray works from 7 a.m. till the start of the John Campea Show, getting our show graphics ready. Then while the show is on, he tries to give some comments here and there, but even then he doesn't talk very much because most of the show that we're doing, he's working on trying to get thumbnails made for all the different segments that we have. When the show is now done at 12:30, he then has the job of taking the completed show, editing out every single individual segment that we do, and then with each individual segment, finding the right place to put in our show sponsor ads in each one of those things. He's got to render them all out, finish the thumbnails for all of them, write up all the titles, descriptions, and meta information, and get all of that posted, and then he's still not done. At that point, it's about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At that point, he's worked, from 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. So at that point, he's already worked 8 hours. And then at that point, he starts working with Jonathan on any editorial videos and stuff like that we're doing. Jonathan is the same thing. He's just working on different stuff. So how would you like it if you worked at a company where you and this other guy were both working full time and you got paid the same, but then the other guy only started working 2 hours a day and you're working 8 hours a day and they still pay that guy what you make? It's not fair. It's not right. And it doesn't make business sense. It just doesn't make business sense to do that. So again, it was through absolutely no fault of Rob's, no fault of anything. It's just, a lot of things that we wanted to do didn't work out. And I can't pay somebody full time who's only going to end up working about 2 hours, 2 hours a day. So, and for Rob, it just didn't make sense. Whereas it didn't make financial sense or didn't make business sense for me to pay somebody full time who's only going to be working 2 hours a day. For Rob, it didn't make sense to work part-time anymore. When he's got ROBSERVATIONS and he's got an opportunity to build and develop Robservations is something that I think is a very, very needed place in the online space, because Rob does the type of content that nobody else does. Like his types of shows and what he does, they're completely missing in the online landscape. And so I am a complete proponent of working for yourself and use your labor to build something that belongs to you. And so I wanted to encourage and support him. So I now sponsor Robservations. Like when Robservations plays, it opens with this episode of Robservations brought to you by the John Campea Show, because I want to help. I want to sponsor it. You know, Rob and I were on the phone the other day. We're going to go hard in Las Vegas at the end of the month. So Rob and I are going to Vegas in a couple of weeks. Anyway, and it just seems surprising to me that a lot of people think, well, just pay somebody a full-time salary, even though they only work a couple hours a day. And you would never do that. And I think if you were working at a place that did that with somebody else, I think you'd be really ticked off. And it's just not something it just doesn't make sense. And for Rob, it just didn't make sense. Why should I work part-time when I can put my energy and effort into building something that belongs to me? That's exactly what I did when I left Collider. Only I left a 6-figure paying job, a full-time gig. I left it because I think this is important. And so does he. So anyway, there's that. I just don't know why that's that hard to understand. But hey, you know, it is what it is. And listen, Rob and I talked, like when we were coming up with all this, listen, both he and I talked about, hey, like, listen, new opportunities may come along, and Rob and I will work together again instantly when the right opportunity comes along. Absolutely. I love working with Rob. I've worked with Rob this month. Rob reminded me, we've been working together 8 years, or at least been streaming together for 8 years. I love working with Rob. So when the right opportunity comes along again in the future, we'll both jump on it. But for now, this is what makes most sense. And so that's the way it is. Anyway, Anonymous, I hope I answered your question. Yeah, so it's not that I couldn't afford to keep Rob on or anything else like that. It's just that I can't, and in a matter of good business sense and morally speaking, I can't pay somebody full-time when other people are working full-time and pay them the same when one person's working 8 hours and one person's working 2 hours. I can't do that. It just doesn't make sense. And maybe some other people would, and I'm sure they would go out of business really fast, but it just is what it is. Again, it's no fault of Rob's, no fault of anybody. It's just, you know, we tried some things. We tried it for a year. Rob has always only worked part-time for me up until last year, and we gave it a real try. We tried our best. And maybe in the future, we'll come up with something else that works better. And if it does, awesome. And if not, then my channel will be here. Robservations will be there. I'm going to do my best to support Robservations and try to give it its best shot at succeeding the way I know Rob can make it succeed. And we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so that's that. Okay, next up. Let's see here. We've got CBD or CDB. CDB writes, one of two. At Star Wars Celebration, there will be a 1-hour panel that looks at how the sequels expand upon and intersect with the mythological underpinnings of the first 2 trilogies. So, wasting an hour to explain how a trilogy with many production problems, a story written on the fly, constantly contradicting itself, expanding the mythology. On the surface, it reads to me like Lucasfilm saying, the sequels add to the mythology, not detracts from it. We swear. It comes across as Lucasfilm trying hard, at least to me. Yeah, look, the one thing I will say about this. Now, you know me, I'm actually kind of neutral when it comes to the Star Wars sequels. I think The Force Awakens was fantastic. I will argue and win any debate about that anytime. And so, of course, it's all subjective, absolutely subjective. But I mean, I will argue that any day. I think The Force Awakens is fantastic. The Last Jedi, I enjoyed, but I will not debate that it has some major problems. I completely agree it does. I think of The Last Jedi much the same way I think about Black Adam. Are there problems with it? Absolutely there are. No argument for me that there are problems. But I also happen to think there's some really good stuff in it too that made me, at least at the end of the day, when it all said and done, I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. There's certain things about it that I love and certain things about it that I hate. Then you get into The Rise of Skywalker, which I think was a total abomination. Like, I just absolutely, like, the fact that they kept winging it as they went with no plan whatsoever, it finally caught up to them. And so overall, I'm kind of neutral on the Star Wars sequels. But I would say this. I could see them doing a panel about how the sequel mythologies intersect with the originals mythologies, because I think even though they were winging it, and even though I think they did a bad job, I think they clearly were trying to do stuff that would work with the original mythologies of the first trilogies. Now, how well they succeeded or failed is up to each individual viewer to determine on your own. I think sometimes they nailed it, sometimes they didn't, but I will at least acknowledge, even as somebody who completely hated The Rise of Skywalker, I will at least acknowledge that I can see what it was they were trying to do there, right? Like, even in some of the most ludicrous, stupid things they did, I can at least say, okay, I get what they were trying to do. They may have failed at it. I may think they failed completely at it, but I can at least see what it is they were going for. And I can give that credit. So, you know what? Maybe that panel wouldn't be such a big waste of time. It actually might be interesting to find out what their thinking process was about how certain decisions in the Star Wars sequels were intended to tie into the mythologies of the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. It could be interesting. Could be interesting. Because they may have failed. But I'll at least acknowledge that they tried. I think they tried and just failed badly. All right. Anyway, thanks for that, Anonymous. Or that was probably CDB. All right. Next up. Another Anonymous writes, do you think one of the reasons why they are putting a lot of Hulk-related characters in Cap 4 is because it's their way of accepting that they really can't have a deal with Universal or set up for a new movie? Are you more interested now with the addition of Liv Tyler? Thanks. Yeah, one of the things I didn't get to talk about last week was, hey, Liv Tyler's back. Liv Tyler is back in the MCU. She is, Ross again. She's Thunderbolt Ross's daughter again. I think it's great that she's back. I think it's totally wonderful. Now, yeah, it does kind of look like they're accumulating Hulk characters in this thing. We've got the leader, right? The leader's back from the last Hulk movie. Liv Tyler's back from the last Hulk movie. They're clearly trying, right? Whether or not Hulk himself pops up in it, don't know. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. There's still such a big roadblock, though, because obviously, again, Disney cannot make a Hulk movie without Universal then being able to step in and take it away from them to be the distributor of it. I mean, Marvel can make a Hulk movie if they want, but then guess what? It doesn't go on Disney Plus. It goes on Peacock. That's where it goes, because Universal has the distribution rights. And as the distributor has the right to decide where that movie goes, whether it goes to theaters, whether it goes to streaming, whether it goes, and then when it goes, if it goes to theaters, great. How many theaters do we want to put it? How long do we want to keep it in cinemas? And if it goes to streaming, the distributor decides which streaming services to go to. And guess what? If Marvel makes a Hulk movie, Universal's going to put that damn movie on Peacock. That's exactly where that movie's going. Because Peacock is owned by Universal. NBC Universal, all under the umbrella of Comcast. Comcast, NBC Universal, NBC Universal. It's all one thing. All one big happy family. So yeah, they make that Hulk movie. Let me show you the door over here to Peacock. Go on in, Hulk movie. The water's fine. That's what they're going to do. And that's why Disney will not make a Hulk movie. Because they're not in control of who distributes it. They got to get that resolved, man. They got to get it resolved. And I hope they do soon, because I really would like to see a Hulk movie, but I would be lying to you if I didn't admit that family barbecue Hulk does not interest me all that much. And that's a reference to the last scene of She-Hulk when Hulk shows up in his family barbecue shirt. Hey, everybody, I want to introduce my son with the Beatles haircut, right? I love Hulk. I'm not all that super interested in family barbecue Hulk. So I don't know, man, but I hope they find some way to get this worked out. I really do. Really, really do. Okay. Where are we at here? Oh, there we are. We are at Tron, who writes, did you see James Gunn clap back at a Superman casting rumor started by a certain YouTuber? I'm all for calling BS, but dude is the head of DC. Why bother beefing with random YouTubers on Twitter regarding DC? Just focus on you. Hey, listen, I completely agree. I am an unmitigated, completely self-confessed James Gunn fanboy. I am. That being said, I do believe there is one thing to be active on social media if you're like the head of a studio. It's another thing to be really dug into the minutia of stuff going on in social media that should not concern you at all. What some random YouTuber says or doesn't say should not concern you at all. What I say, if you're Bob Iger or David Zaslav or Peter Jackson or James Gunn or any, you shouldn't give two craps what John Campea says on the John Campea Show. I'm just a movie fan. I'm a fucking nobody from Canada who started a YouTube channel in a spare bedroom, and just me and some other people are online talking to each other about movies. Who cares? Who cares what I say? It's just a community of people talking amongst themselves, having some fun, sharing some information if they think they've got information and all that kind of stuff. What I'm saying here is, if you're James Gunn, you should completely ignore this kind of stuff. You should completely ignore this kind of stuff. And look, James Gunn has been very active about debunking fake things and all this kind of stuff and yada, yada, yada. And I get that. And there's some value in that in and of itself, I suppose. But dude, you don't need to say anything. You know why? Let somebody start a rumor that so-and-so is playing Superman. That's fine. In a year and a half, when you start shooting the movie and it's a different actor playing the role, that answers that. You don't need to get involved. So unless there's a rumor going out there that could really, a really untrue rumor that could damage the perception of the the DC universe, in which case you might want to put a quick tweet. Hey guys, there's a rumor going around that we're going to make Blue Beetle, I don't know, a Smurf. He's literally going to be a Smurf. And one day hanging out with Papa Smurf on the run from Gargamel, he finds the Scarab and becomes Blue Beetle. Oh, okay, so if that rumor starts going around, that's going to really piss people off. Maybe they say, hey guys, there's a rumor going around that Blue Beetle's going to be a Smurf. Just so you know, he's not. Maybe that. But other than that, I really just think he needs to, and again, I love James Gunn. I do. But he really just needs to take a back seat and not worry about it. And understand that his job and position in the entertainment industry is so far above random frickin' hobo YouTubers like me and others, what we're talking about in our little insignificant communities. He really needs to stop it because one of these days he's going to get too involved and then he's going to say something he doesn't want to say or whatever. It's a bad practice, James. And I know James is watching this, not because he's watching live, but his people will probably take this and share it with him. But it's just, there's nothing good that comes out of it, James. There's nothing good that comes out of it. You don't need to respond to every freaking hobo YouTuber like me out there. You can just do your thing, man. We believe in you. We believe in you. Just you go do you, man. And let everybody talk about whatever BS rumors they want to. When you start making your movie and the set pictures come out and the trailers come out, that'll set the record straight real fast. But anyway, yeah, there's that. Okay. Thanks for that, Tron. Next up, And this is our final tip question. Comes to us from another anonymous person. Remember, guys, when you send in a tip question, don't forget to fill in that field that says your name, because if you're going to support our channel and give us fun things to talk about, I want to make sure you get a shout out. So try to remember to make sure to fill out your name when you do it. Otherwise, it just comes through as anonymous. Anyway, another anonymous viewer writes in and says, speaking of Blue Beetle, whatever happened to that Bad Bunny El Muerto movie? It's been forever since we heard about it. Do you think this movie still happens, or did the failure of Morbius kills it? No, even when they announced it at CinemaCon last year, they brought Bad Bunny out on stage and they announced this movie and all that kind of stuff. They gave us the impression that it was still a ways off, right? Like even at CinemaCon when they made the announcement, the impression we had, I think, if I remember correctly, was that it was still a ways off. So I believe they are still planning on making this movie. Listen, I'm not a big fan of just taking any random celebrity with limited to no acting experience and suddenly making them the lead in a new franchise. It's not what I would do, but Sony, you do you. He is a super huge star. I mean, there's no getting around that. Bad Bunny is, I mean, I was just at WrestleMania. I mean, that dude, if you watch the pop he got on Saturday when he came out, very, very popular guy. So I still, to the best of my knowledge, I still think they're doing that movie. So, but I'm not surprised that we haven't heard much about it at this point, because again, when they first announced it, I didn't get the feeling that this was something that was going to be happening imminently. But my guess is until we hear otherwise, I think it's still happening. All right, guys, with that down, we are going to now move over and start taking your live questions that you guys have been firing in using the super chat. So we'll get to that in just a second. Now, before we get to those super chat questions, we're going to take just a second here, and I'm going to thank a sponsor of today's video, the main sponsor of the John Campea Show, our friends, my mobile service provider, Mint Mobile. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for being the sponsor of the John Campea Show. All right, guys, with all that down, let us jump over now and start taking the live questions you guys have been sending in just for this very show. So let's get over there and start checking that out, shall we? We're going to start off here with Fangblaze71, who writes, do you think it'll be Bo-Katan or Din who ends up taming the Mandosaurus? I think you mean the Mythosaurus. Right now, I'd say Bo, but I really want to see Dim tame it instead. No, it's going to be Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan, they've done a lot of setting up with Bo-Katan, kind of like she's the true leader of the Mandalorian people. She is the one who walks in both worlds, as the armorer referred to her, right? So I really do think it's going to be Bo-Katan. I think Din is going to play a very major part in all this, but I think it's going to be Bo-Katan. Well, you never know. We'll find out. All right. Fangblaze also writes, just realized the Mythosaur, it's the Mythosaur, not Mandosaurus. Oh, no problem, Fangblaze. We got you, but thank you for correcting yourself anyway. All right. Attack of the Mushi writes, got my Guardians of the Galaxy marathon ticket, 7 hour and 44 minutes. Pray for me. Yeah. Listen, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I can't do it. I'm not going to go in to watch a marathon of them. Apparently they're doing this marathon thing that You will be the first people to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 if you see it in this marathon for Guardians 1, 2, and 3 all together. It actually sounds like it could be fun. I just don't think I could do it. I don't think I could do it. All right. Next up, Just a Sub 32 writes. Wrong button. Just a Sub 32 writes. The only thing I'd like about Book of Boba Fett is that they brought Cad Bane, and honestly, he was much more awesome than Boba in his own show. Yeah, but at the end of the day, they didn't do a hell of a lot with him, did they? I mean, he came across as real cool. I love the voice. I love the design, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they didn't really do a lot with him in that. Oh man, the Book of Boba Fett was such a missed opportunity. I thought it started well and it had its moments, but I am Boba Fett. Anyway, yeah, I wish it could have been better. All right, Suthius writes. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons and don't know anything, but I really enjoyed this rendition. All the characters were RJP, Renee, Jean, I don't know how to say his last name, is one suave, charismatic dude. Listen, that dude, you're talking about the dude from Bridgerton. That dude, come on, it's just stupid how good looking that guy is. I mean, come on, it's just unfair. Like, you get the fucking schlubs like me, and it's bad enough I got to look in the mirror in the morning, and I got to look on my screen and see a guy blessed with those kinds of genetics. That dude, and listen, I'm a very, very, very secure, very boring, straight heterosexual male, completely secured in it, but I will tell you what, F how good looking that guy is. That guy is stupid good looking. He's so good looking, it's almost distracting. Right? It's nearly distracting. He's so good looking. So yeah, we'll see. All right. Thanks for that. Let's see. Next up, we got Moda Awesome who writes, to be honest, I didn't think the Blue Beetle trailer looked good at all. Really? But hey, I hope the movie changes my mind and turns out to be good. Hey, dude, listen, that is the right attitude to have. Whether you like a trailer, don't like a trailer, like the sounds of a movie, don't like the sounds of a movie, super hyped for a movie or not interested in a movie. A real movie fan will sit back and say, hey, Lee, I hope it's good. I hope it's good. I mean, I didn't like the trailer. Doesn't sound interesting to me. I might not even check it out, but I hope it turns out good, right? That's the attitude of a true film fan right there. Hope something is good. Listen, I'll be honest with you. I was really delighted by it. I found it quite charming. And I was a little bit pessimistic going into it because I really didn't know what to expect coming out of it. But I liked what I saw, man. I got to say, I liked what I saw. All right. Next up, we have, where are we at? We're at Ass is Back. Right. My most anticipated films this year are Across the Spider-Verse. That's right up there for me too. Dune Part 2, mean too. Absolutely cannot wait for the new Spider-Verse trailer dropping soon. Yeah, like, when is it again? Didn't they just announce when the new trailer was going to drop for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? Was it like this? I want to say it's this week sometime, is it? Do you guys in the live chat remember? Influence is saying tomorrow, April 4th. I thought it was this week. Dropping a boundary trailer. Guys, listen to me. Listen up. This is part of the reason why we get so excited about going to CinemaCon. At last year's CinemaCon, they showed us like 15 minutes of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. At least half of it, the animation wasn't even done. Like, it would be full animation and then pencil sketch animation and then kind of animatic animation, then back to full animation, playing a full 15-minute scene, right? And even though it was doing that, it was one of the best things I'd seen all year. This movie is going to rule. Absolutely rule. I cannot wait for it. All right. Next up, As is Back writes, crazy week, Secret Invasion, Blue Beetle, and Extraction all had trailers. Guardians Volume 3 tickets on sale, and Super Mario Brothers and Air in cinemas. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I don't like Extraction, but the trailer for the sequel looks pretty good. I got to give it that. Also, Tuesday at midnight, I got my tickets. I'm going to go see Super Mario Brothers. So here's my night tomorrow night. It's good. This is good to be me. Ann and I are going to go out to the Crypto Center to watch the LA Kings play the Edmonton Oilers first. We're going to drive home, get changed a little, I think, and then drive right to the movie theater to watch a midnight screening of Mario Brothers. And then I'm going to come home And once I get home from my midnight screening of Mario Brothers, time to put on the new episode of Mandalorian. Hopefully that'll all be done by 4. I can get a solid 2 hours of sleep and then be ready to go on Wednesday's show. You are going to get either a very loopy John Campea on Friday or a very grumpy John Campea on Friday. And maybe a little bit of both. Maybe a little mixture of the two. I'm not going to have all my faculties there. I'm going to be probably a little disconnected from reality a bit. Wednesday. So I'm going to be downing a lot of caffeine, probably, and maybe a lot of sugar. I might have to have a liter or a pint of some cookies and cream ice cream or something like that. So we'll see how that goes. All right. But it's still a Tuesday night that I am looking forward to, despite the craziness of it. All right. Daniel Vasquez writes, what is CinemaCon registration and Admit One Hospitality Lounge? And do I need to attend them every day in order to get into the studio presentations? So no, if you're going to CinemaCon, the one thing you do have to do is CinemaCon registration, because you can't just show up and then walk into you got to go, and the first thing you got to do when you get there is go to their registration. Hold a second. I'm getting a call. I'm doing a live show. That didn't connect. I'm doing live show right now. You know this person, but I will not show you who it is. I will call them back when I'm done. Okay. So you have to go. The first thing you got to do is you got to go to registration and register. Like, you may have already bought your pass and all that kind of stuff, but you still have to in person register. You'll come with your confirmation number, all that kind of stuff. You get registered. You need to do that. The hospitality lounge is just if you have a certain level of pass called the Admit One, then there's this hospitality lounge that's open most of the time that'll have some snacks and some drinks and a place to socialize and just hang out and all that kind of stuff. It's just a lounge, so you don't have to worry about that. I haven't been to the wait a second. I just got a text back from this person. What's this? Oh my God. Well, I know what we're talking about on the show tomorrow. Harry Potter. Warner Brothers nears deal for the new Harry Potter television series. Okay, well, hot damn. I guess I know one of the things we're talking about on the John Campea Show tomorrow. Holy hell. All right. Warner Brothers is closing a deal for a brand new Harry Potter show. Boom. Well, I guess we know what we're talking about tomorrow. But anyway, so you don't need to go to the lounge. You might not even be allowed to go to the lounge. But the one thing you have to do is go to the CinemaCon registration and get registered, but you only have to do it once. So there you go. All right. Let's see. What's next here? Fangblaze71 writes, can't wait for the next MCU show. Really excited to see some people's secrets get invaded or whatever it's about. Secret Invasion. Yeah, the trailer came out. I have been fortunate enough to have somebody very covertly show me a little bit of it. This is going back. This was a while ago, but they showed me a little bit of it. I liked what I saw. I have some big spoilers I could give away from it. Sometimes I just think I just want to spoil Disney shows. I could just tell people everything that happens in it. I won't. Don't worry. I will not. But it's tempting. But listen, what I see actually looks pretty good. And so I am looking, and I thought the trailer was great. I really thought the trailer was great. So there's that. All right. Next up. We got Fangblaze71 who writes, do you think Peter makes it out of Guardians 3? I do. I am not willing to put money on that, Fangblaze, but if I had to put $5 on it, I would bet that he does, but I would not bet 20. I'd bet 5, but I wouldn't bet 20. Let's just put it that way. Okay. Let's see. Next up comes from Chef Rigo, who writes, hey John, I was at WrestleMania last night too, and I had a blast. Perfect way to spend my birthday weekend. What was your favorite match or reaction? My favorite reaction was Edge coming out. I think that was the biggest pop of the evening, was Edge coming out for his fight against Finn Balor. That was great. I think my favorite match, Yeah, it might have been the Edge match. Also, the Asuka Belair fight was also that was a good match. Yeah, I think I hated the way the main event ended. That was horrible. That was some 1980s bullshit, the way they did that, and completely disrespectful to people. Hey, listen, I got really cheap tickets handed to me to go to that, so I have no reason to complain myself. But there are people who spent thousands of dollars and flew across the country and got hotel rooms for a bullshit 1980s. Oh, the bad guy had a henchman interfere so he could win the fight. That's what you wrote for your fans who've been waiting all year for WrestleMania and spent thousands of dollars on these tickets and flew across the country? It was really, really pathetic. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible ending. Because as soon as Roman Reigns came out and he had that dude with him, I turned in and I said, so the way this match is going to end is that guy is going to interfere and hit Cody Rhodes when the ref isn't looking or something like that. And then Roman Reigns will pin him and that'll be the end of the match. They've been doing this since the 1980s. I mean, that's how it's going to end. And that's exactly what happened. And it was really, really, really bad that they did that, which is too bad because the rest of the evening was really, really good. I had a really good time at it. Anyway, glad you had a good time, Chef Rigo. Okay, next up. Fangblaze writes, what do you think Miles did to piss off all the other Spider-Men? He has to be something big. It has to be something big to get them all chasing him like that. Of course, we're talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and the 15 minutes they showed us did not show us what that will be. My guess is that he's trying to do something that is heroic, but that may put the rest of the multiverse in danger by doing it. We saw the live action Spider-Man do that, right? Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man was very, very selfish, right? But it made for a good movie. But make no mistake, Peter and Spider-Man were very, very, very selfish in Spider-Man No Way Home. Because it's like, okay, you know what? We can fix this problem that is endangering the lives of every man, woman, and child walking on Earth today if you just send these 4 super criminals back to their universes. And if you don't send these 4 criminals back to their universes, you are literally see that school bus full of children driving down Fifth Avenue? Yeah. All those children on that bus, you are putting their lives in danger if you don't send these 4 super criminals back. Listen, heroes do what heroes are going to do, but at the same time, it was very kind of short-sighted and selfish, something maybe a high school senior would do. Oh, and look at that. Peter is a high school senior, so maybe that's a mistake he would make. But maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's something like Peter's or Miles is like, I can't let this happen. I'm going to do something about it. But all the other Spider-Men are like, yeah, but if you do that, you could put something at risk, and we got to stop you. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's something like that. We'll see. Okay. Let's see. Next up, we've got Bill Nix, 68 writes, I'm starting to think the bad writing on comic book movies is having an accumulative effect. People seem to be getting tired of flashy, bad written comic book movies. Could be wrong. No, you're absolutely right. You're 100% right. See, I keep talking about this. Whenever somebody brings up comic book fatigue, there is no comic book fatigue. What there is mediocre comic book movie fatigue. Like when the movies are great, you never hear anybody talking about comic book movie fatigue because the movies are great. But the moment you get into a zone where like 6 of the last 8 comic book movies maybe haven't been all that great, well, then you're going to start to see some fatigue because the quality isn't there anymore. Because listen, as long as I've been doing June will mark 20 years that I've been doing online film punditry, starting all the way back with my very first post on themovieblog.com that I started writing in June of 2003. During that entire span, every single year, people are saying comic book movie fatigue, comic book movie fatigue, oh, comic book movie fatigue, comic book movie fatigue, comic book movie fatigue. Everything's comic book movie fatigue all the time. But it's never happened because for the most part, when 7 out of every 10 comic book movies that come out are really, really good, sometimes even 8 out of 10 are really good, then people are totally happy because they're getting good movies. But the moment you start getting movies that aren't so great, people will start to get fatigued of that. It's not a genre fatigue, it's a quality fatigue. Let me say that again. It is not a genre fatigue. It is a quality fatigue. People are not getting tired of comic book movies. They're getting tired of mediocre comic book movies because we've been getting a bunch of those lately. And I hope we get to see that change. Okay. Thanks for throwing that in there, Phonics. I really appreciate that. All right. Next up. Eddie Vedder stunt double writes, besides The Flash, what are you excited about seeing the most at CinemaCon? Also, do you have a favorite place to eat when you're in Vegas? Okay, I'll start with that point. So when Ann and I are in Vegas, our favorite place, our number one favorite place to go is Gordon Ramsay's Steak. Gordon Ramsay's Steak. It is a restaurant, a Gordon Ramsay restaurant inside of the Paris Hotel. The Paris Hotel is snuggled in between Planet Hollywood and Bally's, now called the Horseshoe Hotel. And that's our favorite place to eat. That's our number one favorite place to go to in there. Another one I really love, just so I'm not a big Gordon Ramsay guy, don't get me wrong, but my second favorite place to eat there also happens to be another Gordon Ramsay place. And it's called Gordon Ramsay Burger. And it's just like the title suggests, it serves like high-end gourmet kind of burgers. And oh my God, they're really good. They're really good. Now that restaurant is in Planet Hollywood. That's where that restaurant is. But that's the thing about Vegas, man. There's so many great restaurants. What am I most excited about seeing besides The Flash? Because The Flash is my number one most intriguing thing. Honestly, my second most exciting thing, listen, I'm looking forward to seeing Boogeyman. They're going to be showing us a full advanced screening of Boogeyman. I'm really looking forward to seeing Joyride because that movie looks fucking hilarious. I cannot wait to watch that. But honestly, my second most excited thing is just the studio presentations. I actually don't go to CinemaCon for the screenings. The screenings are great. Don't get me wrong. Last year, they showed us a bunch of great screenings. This year, they're going to show us a bunch of great screenings. I think we're probably going to see Mission Impossible. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just guessing. But that's not the main thing I get excited about CinemaCon. It's those 2-hour presentations by the studios showing us 10, 15 minutes of footage, bringing out the directors and all the actors of all their upcoming movies over the year. It's amazing. I love these studio presentations. So number one this year for me is probably The Flash. But then after that, it's just those studio presentations. Warner Brothers is doing a 2-hour presentation. Disney's doing a presentation. Paramount, Universal, Lionsgate, Universal. All the big players are there. They're all doing these big, huge, long presentations. And they give us stuff to talk about all year. And I cannot believe it. I get so excited at CinemaCon time, man. I prefer it over Comic-Con. And you guys know I love Comic-Con, but I prefer CinemaCon over Comic-Con. All right. Next up, Cash writes, missed the Air sneak preview showing, me too, because it was Anne's birthday party that night. So I ended up watching D&D and wow, it was actually great. I can see this becoming a very successful franchise. I certainly hope so. Now, of course, the problem is exactly what I knew the problem would be. It's going to struggle to make money. The movie's great. Dungeons and Dragons is profoundly great. Its critic score and its audience score are both in the 90s, and it deserves it. It's a wonderful, fun movie. But like I said a long time ago, I didn't hear a lot of people asking for a Dungeons and Dragons movie. And so it's number one at the box office. It knocked John Wick 4 out. But even though it's number one at the box office, it's number one with $38.5 million. Now, there are some movies that would kill for a $38.5 million opening, but this is a movie that probably at minimum needs to make about $300 million to break even. And I don't know that they're going to get to breaking even. I don't know if they will. I've never known that they would. But I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed that word of mouth about how good this movie is will give it momentum, or that the studio says, hey, you know what? This one lost money, but everybody loved it. So we believe if we do another one, it will make more money. That's the way they should look at it, and I hope it is. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Cash. Next up, Fangblaze71 writes, Lately, we've seen a lot of MCU delays. Do you think anything will get straight up canceled? And if so, what do you think gets canceled? Well, yeah, a lot of the delays have been happening. Number one, some because of mismanagement, which thank you, Bob Chapek, for the way you set things up. But now that Bob Iger's back, some of the delays are happening because Bob Iger is finally letting him and Kevin Feige do what should have been done a long time ago, which is reduce the amount of content they have coming out. That stupid insanity of 2021 and 2022 having 17 projects come out in those 2 years was stupid. It was a bad idea. And so Bob Iger's come in and says, okay, look, let's bring some sanity back here. We're going to reduce how much comes out. We're going to take what we've got right now and we're going to spread it out over a longer period of time. Give everything more time to gestate and be executed properly. Now, the question you have is, could I see anything getting straight up canceled? I mean, it doesn't sound like they're planning on canceling Blade because they've got everything's moving on Blade. They're clearly not going to cancel Fantastic Four. Marvel's is right on course to come out. Honestly, if anything is to get canceled, maybe it's Echo, which I mean, look, nothing, no disrespect intended to anybody who is involved with Echo or who is looking forward to Echo. But when I watched Hawkeye, I was less interested in an Echo show after watching Hawkeye with Echo in it than I was before the Hawkeye show started. Before the Hawkeye show started, I thought, okay, Echo, that could be an interesting series because they were already talking about it. And then when I watched Hawkeye, I'm like, I lost interest. And again, it has nothing to do with the performer who played the role or anything like that. It was just badly, badly written. They did not make me care at all. They didn't make me care at all about the character. They actually made me lose interest in the character. That doesn't happen often. So and I to this day, I don't see any big, I've never heard a lot of people write into me and say, I can't wait for Echo. I'm just saying, I haven't seen that. I get a lot of people writing me that they're looking forward to a lot of different things. I can't really recall getting many messages from people saying, I'm really excited for Echo. And maybe there are. I don't know. Maybe there are. But if one is to get canceled, I would guess that one, but I'm not even sure that one would get canceled. All right, thanks for that, Fangblaze. All right, next up, Eddie Vedder's stunt double writes. There have been talks for years about them doing a reboot/sequel to the American version of The Office. As much as The Office is my favorite show, I think it's too little too late. Your thoughts? No, I disagree. I would have thought that before. I would have totally thought that before Eddie Vedder's stunt double until this little movie called Maverick came out. Even though I thought Maverick was too little too late. That was a movie that should have come out 15 years ago. If you're going to do a Maverick like a Top Gun 2, that movie should have come out 15 years ago. But guess what? It came out and it was number one. It was great. And that nostalgia of people to cut up. You know what? Listen, to this day, The Office is consistently in the top 10 things of what is streamed globally around the world, period, end sentence. It is still like the most popular show in the world. Today, 50 years after it went off air. It hasn't been 50, you know what I'm saying. But 50 years after it went off air, it's still the number one watched thing most of the time. It's crazy how popular that show is. Listen, Schickster in the live chat just said parkour. All you got to do is say parkour and everybody knows what you're talking about. Parkour, parkour, parkour. Everybody knows what you're talking about. Right? All you got to say is Scott's Tots and everybody's pucker hole tightens up because we feel so uncomfortable because of Scott's Tots. That episode, man, that episode was so uncomfortable. It's genius. It was brilliant. I'm going to tell you right now, if they were to do a revisit of The Office, that show would instantly become the number one show in the world. It could suck. And you would still get through 10 episodes of it being the number one show in the world until people maybe started falling off of it if it really did suck. But I'm telling you, you do an Officer right. Does anybody out there want to disagree with that? Does anybody actually believe that if they did if they renewed The Office, right, and brought it back, and they had the original cast, does anybody doubt? Does anybody out there doubt that it would become instantly the number one show in the world? Obviously it would be. It would instantly become the number one show in the world. So I got to tell you, Eddie, I do not believe for 1 second it's too little too late. I don't believe that for 1 second. Anyway, so there's that. Okay, next up, Sam Fisher writes, did you see the trailer for Wes Anderson's new movie, if you're talking about Asteroid City? It looks fantastic. I missed The French Dispatch, but I love Wes, and Grand Budapest is in my top 10. Listen, I'll tell you, I actually talked about the trailer for Asteroid City on Saturday, but I'll mention what I said there. Look, it's a Wes Anderson movie, so I'm automatically interested in it. Of course I am. It's Wes Anderson. But if I'm being honest, if you took Wes Anderson's name off that trailer and you didn't let me know this is a Wes Anderson movie, and I just saw that trailer, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know that I'd be interested in the movie. I don't think the trailer was all that good. Now, I have zero doubt that the movie's going to be really, really good because it's Wes Anderson, and I really like Wes Anderson's stuff. But again, if I'm being honest, if you took Wes Anderson's name off that trailer and it was just a movie by Bob Skittlemank, a new film by Bob Skittlemank, I would have watched that trailer and gone, I don't know if it looks that interesting. But I am interested because it's a Wes Anderson movie. So yeah, I'll tell you what, Sam, I'm not so convinced that was a very good trailer, to be honest with you, but that's just me. All right. James Argenta writes, game week for Star Wars, Bryce Mando episode this week, and Celebration this weekend. Most likely first Ahsoka trailer and Indy 5 trailer. Yeah, you know what? They're probably, somebody wrote in to me recently asking, when do we think we're going to be getting a next Indiana Jones trailer? And I said, within the next 2 months. Somebody said, Indiana Jones opens in 2 months. When do you think we'll get the next trailer? And I said, within 2 months. But you know what? That would make perfect sense. Releasing it during Star Wars Celebration, that kind of does make sense. Now, yes, Indy isn't Star Wars, but it's Harrison Ford. It's Lucasfilm. So you know what? I think you're right, James. I think you're right. I think they probably will. Do that there. And I also agree that we'll probably get the first Ahsoka trailer. And I'm very curious about Ahsoka, especially after seeing Zeb in the latest episode of Mandalorian. How good does Zeb look? I never would have thought that Zeb was a character who would look good in quote unquote live action. I didn't know that he would look any good live action, but oh my God, he looked great. He looked great. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about that. All right, next up. Cockroach77 writes, I just want to say it's great to have the crew back this week. It is great to be back. Love what you all do and hope the time off was restful and rejuvenating. The time off was great. I mean, and again, and I am sorry that we didn't give everybody more heads up. I didn't let people know that we were taking last week off until after Friday's show was done. I put up a post in the community tab. Now, I had somebody write in and ask me, like, why didn't you announce on the show? And I'll tell you exactly why we didn't announce it earlier. You guys know that we have sponsors for our show, right? Q. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor. We have sponsors on our show. And we have a commitment last week to run sponsor spots. Like, we had a commitment to do that. Now, I had put in a request through my business associates to the ad agency, to the agency representing us, to see if how do I put this? Our ad performance is way above average. Like, we have what they constantly tell us that our ads for our sponsors always highly overperform, like way overperform. So I went and I wrote to our agency and I asked, hey guys, do you think our sponsors, can you check with our sponsors to see if they would mind, since all the ads we've been doing have been overperforming, would they mind terribly much if we just shut down for the week? And I literally did not get final word back that thank you to all of our sponsors, by the way, especially you, Mint Mobile, looking at you guys. I didn't find out until right after the John Campea Show that Friday ended. I literally went into my office, checked my email. There was the response from our agency saying, yeah, the sponsors are totally cool with you taking next week off. I went, great. So then I told the rest of the staff that they had a paid week off. I paid everybody for their week off. I told the staff then that we're going to take the week off. Me and Ann took off for a few days, had a very wonderful, wonderful, wonderful week. It's been well over a year since I just straight up took a week off. I'm like anybody else, man. Eventually I start to feel it. So I was really needing that time off and it was great. Thank you for asking. All right. Let's see. Next up here. Cameron Dane Scott writes, can you talk about your first reaction to Scott Pilgrim versus the World? And are you interested in the new upcoming anime series with the same cast? Thanks. I still remember my very first time watching Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It was at Comic-Con, not to be confused with CinemaCon. It was at Comic-Con, and that year, I got to go see it at Comic-Con, and it just so happened that Edgar Wright, that's Edgar Wright in the middle, the director of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. They were bringing it there. So, and we were awarding him, like used to do this party called the Masters of the Web Party. And we were going to award him that year with our, what I named the AMC Film Fanatic Award. And so that's me and Scott. Right beside him is an executive from AMC that I did not have the best working relationship with, to be honest. And maybe that was her fault. Maybe that was mine. But whatever. That was one of the senior executives at AMC at the time. So that was at that party. I think this is also from that. Of course, Brandon Routh is in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. This, of course, is that infamous picture, because I love Brandon Routh, but for whatever reason, this is the picture that makes it look like I'm teaching Brandon Routh how to give an effective blowjob. I mean, I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy about it, but I mean, that's what it looks like, right? It does indeed look like I am trying to teach Brandon Routh how to give an effective blowjob. That is not a good look. That is not a good look on me. See what you do, Brandon, is you grab it by the shaft. Yeah, that's what it looks like I am doing there. But at any rate, that was my first time, was that weekend, and then they came to the party afterwards. He brought the whole cast with him. I loved it. Love Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I love that movie. And it doesn't hurt that it's about good Canadian kids in the city of Toronto. I absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm not a big anime guy. So while I'm very curious about the original cast coming back to do the voices of the Scott Pilgrim anime, I would have guessed I'd be more excited for it, but I'm actually not all that excited for it. I will definitely check it out, though. I will 100% check it out. So we'll see, but I'd be lying to you if I told you that I was like straight up excited for it, because I'm not really at this point. All right, next up. Cameron Dane Scott also writes, Raid is my number one martial arts film. What's yours? Thanks. My number one martial arts film is, it's a Jet Li film, not Hero. Why am I freezing on the name of the Jet Li movie? It is yet another one where he is seeking vengeance for the murder of his master, and I'm freezing on the name of it. I can't believe. I've been talking about Hero a lot lately, so I've just got Hero at the front of my. No, it's not The One. By the way, The One was the one which is with Jet Li and Jason Statham. That was the first movie that the visual effects company that I worked with. That's the first actual real movie we got a contract to do a couple of effect shots on. But it was not The One. It wasn't Legend of the Fist. That might be it. It might be Legend of the Fist. because it wasn't Fearless. It wasn't Unleashed. Fist of Legend, not Legend of the Fist. That's what it is. It is the Fist of Legend. That is my favorite one. That, and then there's an old Kung Fu movie called Shaolin versus Lama. And it is everything that is ridiculous about Kung Fu movies and everything that is awesome about old Kung Fu movies. I don't know if you've seen it, but it is called Shaolin versus Lama. It is so great. It is so great. Do check it out if you get a chance to. All right, next up. We've got Atomic Brew, who writes, my son and I got such a kick out of your Jar Jar impersonation that we need that to happen. Please record your reaction to the next 3 episodes. I'm telling you what, man. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do. I just don't know how I will physically react if I'm watching the next episode of Mandalorian and Jar Jar Binks actually shows up. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'll cry. I don't know if I'll pass out. I don't know if I'll just start to tremble. I just know. Misa, so glad you're safe. I mean, where's the Jedi? Oh my God. Shit. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do, man. I really don't. All right. Next up, as Fangblaze71 writes, the Mario games always have the best music. I really hope some of that can carry over to the movie. You know what's funny? In all the reactions, the early reactions we were reading this morning on the John Campea Show, a couple of them specifically point out the music and say that the music was great. And you're right. Come on. Who doesn't hear music to Mario games and instantly feel happy? Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Come on. Yeah, you all started humming it in your head just now. We all feel happy. It's got fantastic music. I absolutely love it. All right. Next up, we got Jason A, who writes, went to an 11 a.m. showing of Dungeons & Dragons at AMC, and after previews and ads, it was 11:27 by the time it actually started. I love film, but this really turns me off going to the theaters. Thoughts? Listen, Jason, this is a long time peeve of mine about the movie theaters. They play too many, and forgive the language, fucking trailers. And I am somebody who loves trailers. I made an entire document. I took a year out of my life to make a documentary about trailers called Movie Trailers, A Love Story. An interesting thing, we quote a study that was done of moviegoers that said, took gauge of how many trailers are you okay with seeing at a movie? 0, 0 to 3, 3 to 5, 6 to whatever, right? Once they actually got up to the number of how many trailers they actually play in front of movies these days, especially at AMC theaters, which is like freaking, oh God, 9, 10 trailers. Anyway, it was like 1%. 1% of the audience said that they're cool with that many trailers, which means 99% of your audience does not want that many trailers. As a matter of fact, at CinemaCon 2 years ago, I think it was the president of Paramount Studios got up, and remember, he's talking to an auditorium filled with movie theater owners. And the CEO of Paramount Pictures said, theater owners, please reduce the number of trailers you play before the movie. Number one, you are turning off the audience. You want the movie-going experience to be as positive as possible. And when you make people sit through near a half hour of commercials, because that's what trailers are, they are commercials. When you make people sit through a half hour of commercials in a seat that they paid to be in, you are lowering the movie-going experience. But number two, the CEO of Paramount said, he said, by playing so many trailers, you're making the trailers less effective. Because if you play 3 trailers, most people are going to remember all the trailers that played. But if you play 10 trailers, they're going to forget most of the trailers that played. So you're not even being effective with the trailers that you're showing. The trailers you're playing are less effective because you're making them get lost in a sea of trailers that you play so damn many of them, right? So listen, Jason, brother, you are, as the old saying goes, you are preaching to the choir. I don't know why they're such freaking morons. This isn't rocket science, guys. You are ruining people's movie-going experiences. You're at least detracting from their movie-going experience. And your number one responsibility is to figure out how to make the experience as positive as possible so people keep wanting to come back. And what's the first thing they experience when they come through your doors? In a seat that they paid money to be in, you are making them sit through a half hour of commercials. You said a movie started at 7 and it doesn't actually start till 7:30. It's crap. And I wish more movie fans made a bigger noise about it. Because maybe then these morons would start doing something about it. Anyway, so can you tell, Jason, this is kind of a little bit of a pet peeve issue for me and project of mine. Anyway, there's that. Okay, next up. Dwayne Fernandez writes and sends in like a $28 super chat. Dwayne, thank you so much for that, man. And Dwayne writes, hey, John, I was curious. When it comes to profit for a film, we usually do production cost times 2 for marketing to see break even. I don't think you should do that for marketing costs. Anyway, why don't we also factor in how much studio gets versus cinemas? Wouldn't that lower our rough break even? Well, listen, I always tell you guys what it is. And I always tell you guys that the basic formula for determining, it's not a scientific thing, but it's just basically, if you want a basic rule of thumb, to know roughly what is the break-even point of a movie. It does take into consideration that. So the first thing you do is find out how much did the movie cost to make. That's the production budget. Second, how much was the marketing budget? Sometimes it's $20 million. Sometimes it's $50 million. Sometimes, like for a huge movie like Endgame, they can spend like $200 million. Most movies don't spend anywhere near that, but you figure that. So let's say you had a movie that made, that cost $80 million to make and $20 million they spent on marketing. Okay. Now you need $100 million to break even. Again, this isn't getting into the fine minutiae. This is just giving a general rule of thumb so you can roughly figure out what the break-even point is, okay? So you need to make $100 million. So now what you do is you look at the box office money and then minus 1/3. Because roughly speaking, there are people out there who tell you the theaters keep 50%. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. Okay. I worked with AMC theaters for years. I was flying out to their headquarters several times a year. I sat down with their people. They told me and showed me how it all broke down. So here it is. You take the box office numbers and then you roughly subtract 1/3, because 1/3 is roughly what the theaters are going to keep. Okay. Again, it varies, but if you're going to, at the end of the day, when it all comes out in the wash, it roughly works out to 1/3. Okay. So that means if a movie that cost $80 million to produce and spent $20 million on marketing, that's $100 million investment right there. That movie needs to make $150 million at the box office because you need $100 million, but 1/3 of your box office is going to be kept. So if your movie makes $150 million at the box office and you subtract 1/3 roughly, then there goes that $50 million. You're left with $100 million. So roughly, production budget plus marketing budget equals your costs. Box office minus 1/3 equals your revenue. So that's where you got to have it line up. So that will basically give you an idea. Again, that is not an exact science. Every movie is different. I'm just saying that is a general rough gauge you can apply to roughly determine the ballpark of how much a movie needs to make in order to break even. So there you go. All right. Next up here. Thanks a lot for that, Dwayne, my fellow Canadian. Let's see. Oft Dr. 1PY writes, have you seen the Terminal List from episode 3? It's 5 out of 5. You know what? I never did watch Terminal List. I just never got, there's a lot of shows out there that interest me that I don't get the chance to actually get around to watching. So no, I have unfortunately not seen Terminal List at this point. Okay, next up. But I want to watch it. All right, A. Marcellus writes, 1 of 3. Once Lucasfilm gets their act together, I hope we can go to the future of Star Wars with new Jedi. I felt cheated with sequel trilogy with a washed out Jedi Master and a rookie again. I want to see fully trained Jedi Order again. That's why I think they should jump 100 years in the future, give Rey's Order time to grow and gain experience, but I don't want, I don't want prequel Jedi. I want to see a new order that has learned from the past and allows attachments and protects all citizens, not just the interests of the Republic. All right, so I am completely with you. Now, I'm okay with going really far into the past, like Old Republic, right? As long as you go far enough into the past that it kind of detaches itself from the movies that we've already had. But in an ideal world, for me, A. Marcellus, I'm with you. I'd like to see them jump like 50 years, 100 years in the future and see a reestablished Jedi Order. However, I'm going to have this debate that I have with all my fellow Star Wars fans. Because a lot of Star Wars fans say that the problem came because the Jedi Order was too strict and they should have allowed romances and attachments, right? Yeah, that's not correct at all. The universe went to hell because Anakin broke the rule. That's why the universe went to complete hell. Because everything that Yoda said in the Phantom Menace, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. That's not a very good Yoda impersonation, I know, but whatever. But everything he said was 100% true. The fall of Anakin Skywalker was completely connected to the fact that he formed those attachments. And Luke Skywalker saw the universe go through genocide and all that kind of stuff because his idiot old man decided to break those rules. First, it was the over connection to his mother that led him to doing some horrible, horrible things. And then his attachment to Padme, which led him to doing some horrible, horrible things. Because it was his attachment to Padme that the Emperor was able to say, hey, if you join me, maybe we can save your wife. And if he didn't have that attachment, it's nope, lightsaber, cut your head off. Yay, peace and justice reigns throughout the galaxy again. It was not the fact that the Jedi, and again, I have this debate with all of my Star Wars friends, but the problem was not that the Jedi had the no attachment rule. It's that Star Wars and the story of Star Wars proved that it was a good fucking rule. It was a good rule. But yes, aside from that, A. Marcellus, I am in agreement with you. I would love to see Star Wars Chapter 10, but Star Wars Chapter 10 be like set 100, 150, whatever years further on down the line. And I'd see a reestablished Jedi Order still in its young days. I would really like to see that. I would like to see that very, very, very much. So I'm with you on that. Okay. Next up, we got Derek Large who writes, I saw A Good Person. Ooh, I do want to see that. That's the Morgan Freeman, Florence Pugh movie. That trailer I thought looked great. I saw A Good Person at the Alamo Drafthouse in Dallas my first time, and it was awesome. The movie was a little fluffy, but I cried at least 3 times. Highly recommend. I'll tell you what, I'm so glad you wrote that in, Derek, because I think that movie looks really good. I was feeling emotional just watching the trailer. So I want to get around to watching that myself. I'm glad you saw it, and I'm glad you gave me your input on that. So thank you. You're the first person to write in to tell me that you saw the movie and that you enjoyed it. So thank you so much for that. And guys, that'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much, guys, for being here and making this show a part of your day. Hey, guys, want to remind you, let me see if I can find it here. Oh, it disappeared. Well, anyway, Open Mic, is, of course, you can send in your questions anytime to our tip link. I don't have it ready to put up on screen, but it is streamelements.com/John Campea/tip. You can start sending in, and let me try that again. You can start sending in questions for tomorrow's John Campea Show right now. And then if we don't get around to answering it during the show, we'll just answer it a little bit later on in our open mic episode. So yeah, start sending in your questions for that. Again, it looks like we got some Harry Potter news to talk about tomorrow. We got a number of things that already come up that we're going to talk about tomorrow. So come on back tomorrow to join me and the crew. We'll look forward to seeing you there. So guys, big thank you to all you guys who sent in those tip questions and the super chat questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Guys, have a magnificent, wonderful day. Go show an act of kindness to somebody, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. That'll do it for me, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.